Okay. Hey everybody, how you doing? Great. Thanks for being here. Thanks for hanging out in this really bizarre, can't decide if it's wet or dry kind of night. I have decided that I think the weather follows our programming schedule, so if we have something in the park, you can call the news station and tell them it's going to rain, and it'll probably rain. So anyway, thanks for being here. Feel free to move the umbrellas around or whatever. They're pretty good with the rain, so everything can move. Get comfortable, get dry, whatever. Anyway, thank you for being here again. My name is CJ. I'm the executive director of the Friends at Congress Square Park. That is where you are right now. You're in Congress Square Park, and we are a little tiny nonprofit that takes care of this space, programs it, keeps it kind of active and vibrant, supplies all the stuff that's keeping us sitting and keeping us dry right now too. So if you want to get involved at all, we have a table over here. You can sign up for our newsletter or to volunteer or to throw some cash in the jar. You can do the same stuff on our website, which is congresssquarepark.org, or you can come talk to me. I'll be here all night. Super excited about tonight. I'm not going to talk too much more because we're going to have some speakers before we kick things off. So I'm going to have John Courtney come up and introduce our introducers.
Okay, thanks, CJ. My name is John Courtney. I'm the films programmer for the Portland Museum of Art. And we are co-presenting this film with the Maine Prisoner Advocacy Coalition as part of the Freedom and Captivity Project. You're going to see two films tonight. There's a short, brand new film that we're going to premiere before time. It's called ABCs of Abolition. And just before we show that, I'm going to invite Catherine Dustin to just say a little bit about that project and that film. But the main feature tonight is a film called Time that was made by filmmaker Garrett Bradley. It's nominated for Academy Award last year for Best Documentary. In my mind, it's a phenomenal portrait of the impacts of incarceration on a family. Garrett Bradley was making a short film in New Orleans and met Fox Rich, who you're going to meet in the film, through that film, and was interested in Fox and started talking to her about telling the story about her family. And Fox handed her a shoebox full of high-8 tapes that basically documented 20 years of her family's experience with incarceration. Garrett took that footage and made the piece of work that you're going to see a little bit later tonight. I'm going to introduce two folks who are going to speak before the film. Normally we would do a Q&A after the film, doing an outdoor screening. We start a little bit later. We're going to kind of talk before the film without giving anything away, but I'm going to ask Joseph Jackson, who's the director of Maine Prisoner Advocacy Coalition, and Jen Collins, who's the assistant director, right, of Maine Prisoner Advocacy Coalition, to just share some thoughts with you about Time and what you're about to see. So we can welcome them up to the front here. Jan.
Well, I want to thank John, first of all, for inviting Maine Prisoner Advocacy Coalition to host this screening. And one thing that John didn't mention is John is a volunteer with Maine Prisoner Advocacy Coalition and has been, dedicated himself to the work of prison reform for many years, so I've known him for a while. But I'll let my colleague take the mic. Come on up.
Do you want to get under an umbrella?
You did that on purpose, Joseph. I thought you were going first. Okay, so my name is Jan Collins, and I am Assistant Director of Maine Prisoner Advocacy Coalition, and I do better with notes, so I hope you don't mind if I use notes. I got involved in this work because, first of all, I was the daughter of someone who was incarcerated. That was a really shaming experience for me. It was something that I did my best to hide throughout my childhood and most of my life. It wasn't something that I would tell people about. But then my son got incarcerated, and I couldn't look away anymore. I couldn't pretend that I wasn't part of this system. And it opened my eyes in a way that I cannot erase. It's an experience that is powerful and extremely painful. If you have anyone who is a friend who's incarcerated, please reach out to them because you are their lifeline. My father suffered from substance use disorder. He was an alcoholic. When he was arrested and sentenced, my mother was left with the care of 4 children under the age of 5. My father was the sole breadwinner for our family, which meant we lost our home. We had no way to support ourselves. We became homeless, but for my farmer uncle, who had a plywood trailer that he made that he used to haul around to county fairs. We had no running water and 2 plywood bunks to share between the 5 of us. My sister and I were tucked into either end of the top bunk, and my 2 infant brothers shared the bottom bunk with my mom. Our plumbing was an outhouse. When a parent is imprisoned, the whole family goes to jail. Any resources they might have had or have been holding the family together are lost. More often than not, the family on the outside is left in desperate poverty. It took my family decades to gain a solid foothold. My father never did. What would have saved our family? A recognition that my dad suffered from a treatable medical condition. I tried to imagine what my life might have been like if instead of jail and prison, my father had been able to enter treatment. What would it have been like to have a father in my life? Anyone would tell you Ray was a great guy, except when he drank. I would like all of you to join me in a refrain, and that refrain is, when someone goes to prison, the whole family goes to prison. So after I give you a statistic, I'd like you to repeat that with me. This year at Maine State Prison, it will cost $73,000 per person to keep them incarcerated for a year.
When someone goes to
At the same time as their families are in poverty. When someone goes to prison, their whole family goes to prison.
When someone goes to prison, their whole family goes to prison.
1 in 4 black children born in 1990 saw a father go to prison. When someone goes to prison, the whole family goes to prison. 1 in 30 white children under 14 saw a father go to prison. When someone goes to prison, the whole family goes to prison. Children with incarcerated fathers are 3 times more likely to become homeless. When someone goes to prison, the whole family goes to prison. Children with incarcerated parents are 3 times more likely to suffer depression or behavioral problems. Children don't necessarily say how they feel, they act it out. When someone goes to prison, the whole family goes to prison. In Maine, 1 in 14 children had at least one parent incarcerated this year. 1 in 4 of those children were under the age of 5. More than 75% live in low-income households. When someone goes to prison, the whole family goes to prison. Thank you.
Yeah, we can give it up to our lead and assistant, Jan Collins. I didn't come with notes. I came with my lived experience. So besides being the executive director of Maine Prisoner Advocacy Coalition, I am a returning citizen, having spent 20 years inside of Maine Department of Corrections. So from my point of view, when I look at this film, it tells it from two different perspectives. It tells it from the perspective Jan just shared with you, but it also, you know, there's another perspective, the perspective of the person on the inside, and the barriers that folks go through. In my own story, I'm from out of state. I'm from Tyler, Texas. That's my home state. And I came up here. When I came up here, it was for the Navy. I had joined the Navy. Thought I was gonna travel to see the world, and the world came up was Brunswick, Maine. I was sent to Brunswick, Maine. And at the time, I was probably one of the only few black faces I saw in Maine. There were no one that really looked like me. And I had come from a place where I felt like everybody looked like me. And so, you know, when I got out of the Navy, it wasn't long before I found myself in trouble with the law. And I say this, and I say it like, I didn't really understand that the impact of the color of my skin. I didn't understand that if I wasn't really smiling and showing my teeth, that people thought I was angry and menacing and threatening. And in fact, at my court hearing, I was told I was unrehabilitatable. I went to prison. I spent the 20 years in prison, and at no time throughout that stay did I ever see anyone from my family. I'm from Texas. I lived in poverty. My family lived in poverty. They lived paycheck to paycheck if they lived like that. And so not only could they not come visit me, but the high cost of phone calls also was a barrier. So I would have to wait and quarterly to go to a caseworker to get a 10-minute phone call to talk to my mom. And my mom was a really important person in my life. My mom was the type of person that when I went to church, I had to go to church every Sunday, and sometimes Saturday, and sometimes Friday. And the last time I talked to my mom, she cried. She cried a cry that I still hear sometimes. And a few weeks later, my mom passed away. And I wasn't allowed to go to the funeral. My mom was being buried in Texas, and there was no way that I was going to be allowed to travel to Texas to say goodbye to my mom. While I was on the inside, I lost my grandmother. My grandmother was a matriarchal figure in my life. When I went to school, every year that I was going to school, my grandmother worked at the school. So as I moved from elementary to junior high to high school, she intentionally took jobs to follow me. I wasn't allowed to go to her funeral either. You know, I thought when I was inside, I earned my associate's degree, I earned my bachelor's degree, and I'm the first prisoner in Maine to be accepted to a master's degree program while still a prisoner. And I thought I had it all together, so I planned my reentry well in advance. My aunt and my uncle were going to take me in and allow me to live with them. And then 2 years before I got out, there was a house fire. And both of them passed. So I got out, and when I got out, I probably should add, I'm one of the founders of the Maine State Prison branch of the NAACP. And you know, I was fighting for change on the inside because as an African-American prisoner in Maine, there was no one in charge that looked like me. There was no one who had authority over me that could even relate to what my needs were, how to talk to me. And we began to notice that all the paying jobs no African-American prisoner was getting. We weren't getting anything that was culturally related to our heritage. And so I got out, and when I got out, I began to network and do some of this work with Maine Prisoner Advocacy Coalition and reaching out to other organizations, trying to see if we had a shared value, because the people that are still there are under a state of what I would call perpetual torture. It doesn't feel like, like the water board. But there are thousands of pinpricks that happen every day. It's all just pinprick. And after a while, you just explode. It took everything in me not to come out of that place angry, hostile. I turned my anger into a different thing. I turned it into a passion to change the way that I was living people that I had come to care about. I was in prison with men and women, and women when I was in Wyndham, but men that didn't look like me. I mean, some were vastly culturally different. I want to make sure I'm aware of time. Vastly culturally different than I. But yet I got to know some of them, and I didn't know them by the most heinous act they had created in their lives. I get to see men with kids. I get to see men with stories like the one you're going to see here, being separated from their family, their loved ones, separated from their children. Most of those men, those relationships couldn't stand the pressure and the barrier erected by incarceration. I don't feel that should be the way that we support people, by creating more victims, creating more harm. And so I hope you take away a few things from this film, if anything, is that our system of accountability isn't accountable at all. The idea of safety, that this illusion of safety is exactly that. And that we have a system that creates more harm than good. Thank you, and enjoy the film.
Thank you, Joseph. Thank you, Jan. Just before we show time, I mentioned when we just arrived, we're going to be premiering a short film. You're the first audience to see this. It's called The ABCs of Abolition. It's part of the Freedom and Captivity Project. I'm going to invite Catherine Besteman up to maybe say a little bit about both the film and freedom and captivity. So, Catherine?
Thanks, John, for the invitation to screen the ABCs of Abolition. Freedom and Captivity is a statewide coalition-based public humanities project. And it operates with a number of coalition partners, several dozen coalition partners across Maine that include arts and cultural organizations, advocacy and activist organizations, some schools, colleges and universities, and community-based groups. We're working in collaboration across these organizations to try to help Mainers think about and envision what an abolitionist society, what an abolitionist future could look like for Maine. So this film is one of the projects that we've produced, the ABCs of Abolition. It was made by Reagan Dennis, a young filmmaker, who went across the state for a couple of weeks in July interviewing Mainers. She ended up recording about 100 Mainers sharing their words and their explanations of the ABCs of Abolition. So this is the first time on the big screen. I haven't even seen it. I hope it's good. Thanks so much.
Where can people find out about it?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, thank you, John. So if you're interested in the Freedom and Captivity Project, take a look at www.freedomandcaptivity.org. There's 14 partner exhibitions happening across Maine. There's a huge calendar of events happening throughout the fall. There's lots of films online. There's lots of photographs online. There's a lot of background information about incarceration in Maine. and there's action steps that you can participate in over the next 2 years towards abolition in Maine.
A is for abolition.
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 For abolition.
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 A is for abolition.
A is art, and art is home.
Art allows us to imagine worlds different than our own.
Art is for social change, social imagination, and social justice.
B is for beyond, going beyond the already existing structures and creating new ones.
C is for change.
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 For change.
Nothing changes if nothing changes.
Nothing changes if nothing changes.
Nothing changes if nothing changes.
If nothing changes, nothing changes.
D is for defund. Defund the systems that don't work, like policing, criminal punishment, and caging people, and fund the systems that do work, like housing, healthcare, education, and good jobs.
D is for determination. Abolition won't happen without determination. We are determined.
E is for emancipation. Emancipation from a system that seeks to disappear people through forced captivity.
E is for energy, to get the work done and move us towards transformation.
F is for forgiveness.
Everybody deserves forgiveness.
G is for geography. Abolitionist geographies. Read Ruth Wilson Gilmore.
H is for history. We must understand the importance of history in the creation of our realities and the reproduction of systems of violence. We also turn to history to remember those who made strides for the freedom of their people and those whose names were never known.
I is for irresistibility. Like Rachel Herzing says, we have to make abolition irresistible.
I is for intelligence. Not fear, not ignorance, and not repeating the same failed policies.
Okay. J is for justice.
K is for kids.
Don't put kids in cages.
Don't put kids in cages.
L is for love.
Love.
Love. Revolutionary love.
And love is liberation.
Love is liberation.
As noted by Valerie Kerr, revolutionary love, that is, loving ourselves, loving our opponents, and loving others, has the power to dismantle the carceral system, which is built upon fear and hatred.
M is for motherhood, for mothering and being mothered, that primary source of caring and giving. We need to alleviate the suffering of all mothers. We need to embrace mothering and enable mothering and support the ability to mother and be mothered.
N is for nuance. The way we respond to harm must also be nuanced, based on love, care, accountability, and not one-size-fits-all punishment.
O is for organizations working to end incarceration. Shout-outs to Maine Inside Out, Maine Youth Justice, MPAC, and Maine Recovery Advocacy Project.
P is for protection. What protects well-being? Do prisons protect well-being?
Q is for queer rights.
R is for repair and reparation. Restore and restoration. Reckoning and reconciliation. And resilience. But be resilient and tenacious in our pursuit of restorative transformation.
R is for resolute. To rehumanize those who have been outcast by society. Be resolute in the face of relentless adversity.
S is for sane and sensible approaches to addressing harm.
S is for serenity. Before we can see peace in our society, we need serenity in ourselves. S is for support. To build a foundation of moral and mental and emotional stability around the downtrodden is to create hope. S is for systemic change. In order to grow, we must embrace change so that we may be our best selves.
T is for truth. Truth over fear. When one speaks the truth, one should not worry what comes of it.
T is for thoughtfulness.
U is for unrelenting, the unrelenting work of building a society that cares for everyone. And U is for you. We need you to build the abolitionist movement.
V is for validate.
Everyone has value. Let's stop throwing people away.
We are worthy.
W is for warmth.
W is for wellness. Abolition creates the possibilities for wellness, while incarceration is its antithesis.
X is for xeriscaping, cultivating with the climate.
Y is for yes. Yes to a different future.
Z is for zeal,
For zeal,
and being zealous about abolition.
be zealous about abolition.
A is for abolition.
Well, let's just do it a couple of times and they'll get it.
I is for investment in people, in communities, and things that people need to really thrive. That wasn't it.
A is for crap. What was it? Abolition. Sorry.
R is for revolutionary love.
When we lead with love, we labor with joy.
I wonder who messed up this time.
Oh my god, I'm sorry guys.
Ending prison. And that intercom.
And the intercom. Shout outs to the end of
End incarceration.